Welcome to the Emotional Mastery Podcast. Today, I have Gemma, who's a modern medicine woman, retreat leader, healer, ceremonialist, specializing in energy healing and spiritual guidance. And I'm really excited to get into all the things, with healing and ancestral, all the things. And so I'm going to hand you the floor and let you introduce yourself, and then we'll just kind of take it from there.
Awesome. I'm so happy to be here. Thank you so much for inviting me onto this show. I was just saying before we began, Rochelle, how important I feel the work that you're sharing and doing is out there. And I was also saying a little caveat that I'm in Bali and there's a lot of construction happening here. So if people can hear stuff going on in the background, I'm really sorry about that.
Yeah, real life.
Yeah, real life, exactly. This is just how it is. So yeah, it's really interesting. People often ask me, if they ask me what do I do, it's like, well, I don't really know how to explain it. I work as what's called a Wachumera, which is that I work with the ancestral medicine of Wachuma. That's kind of the Wachuma is a beautiful, beautiful sacred medicine from the high Andes, and it's not everything that I do at all, but it definitely, a lot of what I share comes through from what I've been taught and what I've been shown from the 13 years of serving that medicine and working with it much, way beyond that. And my own personal journey, which has been 25 years now of consciously, I would say, walking a spiritual path. It was always happening, like even as a kid. I was born into an unusual situation where by the time I was 2 days old, I was kind of strapped to the hip of my mum behind the public bar of a hotel. My mum and dad owned hotels. So we had strippers and there was everything, old drunks, everything you could possibly think of. So I often joke and say that was the beginning of my apprenticeship, because I really believe that we choose what we come into. And there's always two ways that we can see our story. And one is from the viewpoint or the perspective of the victim, and the other one is of the creator, right? They're two sides of the same coin, and it's the most empowering shift I think that we can make in our journey on the planet in this carnation. When we get that we are the creator, then we start to realize that the things that we've chosen for us. We hear that it's being thrown around all over now. It's not happening to us, it's happening for us. But it's actually true. The things that we experience in life are catapulting us, squeezing us, through the birth canal, or into the chrysalis, like, the butterfly has to go to, the caterpillar has to go through to become the butterfly, to become the better, higher versions of ourselves. And then eventually we get to a point where when we look back and we are able to see through that lens, through that perspective and see that viewpoint, then we also remember that while we chose what we experienced, we also knew we'd get to a point where we could choose differently. And then we start to create from a new trajectory, from a new, from a new set point, I guess, or 0 point. And that's when you start to become a master of your reality, right? And you start to become very aware of how your subconscious programming is ruling the show. Like the conscious mind is only in charge 5% of the time, so 95% we're operating from a program, which was necessary because when you come in, you're kind of like a computer, right? There's no operating system. So the computer doesn't work without a program. It's just that most of the programs we've been given aren't so helpful until we realize, hey, does that really belong to me? Oh my God, do I really believe that? No, well, what is it? Who am I? Why have I taken on these set of beliefs? Or whatever's. So the work that I do with all of the work that I do with the medicine, but also without the medicine, because these sacred plants, these medicines, I believe eventually they don't want us or need us to work with them at all. They're kind of a key to unlocking a memory of our innate power and our healing capabilities within ourselves. The ancient people, I believe, my feeling is that the medicines weren't used for healing back then. They were used for creating. They were used for visioning and bringing, and getting information like Machupichu. How do we build this temple 2,500 meters up on the side of a mountain, from a quarry that's 60 kilometers away? How do we cut the stones that, you can't even get a hair through them? And then how do we protect it? Because it's not for us, it's for the future generations to come. So we're going to build it, we're going to inhabit it for 5 minutes, and then we're going to leave knowing that the jungle grows over it. And then a time comes where it's revealed and everybody starts to receive the healing benefits and the gifts of Machupichu. So where did they get this intelligence from? Because they were communing and working with these angelic beings, star elder beings that manifest into the plants. The plant doesn't have a spirit, it's a spirit that's chosen a plant. And then they give them wisdom, guidance, information. So that's kind of, everything kind of emanates out of that, but it's not only that. So I also work with the medicine of cacao, because cacao, anything can carry a frequency, right? Water, as we know from beautiful Dr. Momoto's work, that you can program water and it will change the frequency if you put it under a microscope of what it looks like. It's either going to be, if you give it love and gratitude, the water's going to look like a beautiful crystalline snowflake. If you give it hate and judgment and criticism, then the water, when they put it under the microscope, looks like a mess. It's just, it's got no structure, it's got no form. And our bodies, of course, are 80–90% water. So of course what we say to ourselves and the way that we relate to ourselves and to each other makes a massive difference to how we experience ourselves and experience life. So we need to change that. So when we're working with medicines like cacao, which is a beautiful, it's chocolate essentially, but when we work with it in an intentional way, then what it does, like, why do it? Because it brings people's consciousness and awareness to a focal point. It brings people together in a way where everyone is focused on one thing, their inner journey and how they can be in better service to the world around them. And I find in these days that a lot of people want to be in service, because of where we're at on the planet. It's a very powerful cycle that we're closing and a new one we're stepping into. And those souls that are here at the moment, just like yourself, you've put your hand up to help in some way, each in our own individual ways. So I also help people to discover what that is within them and how they can take it out into their families and communities so that it fills them up. And then their cup is so overflowing that the giving becomes super effortless and joyful. So yeah, that's kind of a little snapshot of what it is for me. And it's weird because I'm a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Australian lady who feels like the Andean traditions are in my blood and bones. Strange. But I don't know, my maestro says to me that I'm more Andean than a lot of people that knows.
Yeah.
Even though I don't look it. But this is the thing, as he says, the ancestry, it used to stop at the edge of the village. And that was it. You didn't even know what was going on in the mountains across the way. But the original prophecy and program of their ancestors was that the ancestry was to get to a point where it returned, not became, because it always was, it just went off on a side note, while we had to go through this massive process on the planet, but that it would return, the cycle would return to the wisdom and the ancestry being universal. So it doesn't belong to anybody. It's accessed, it's divine intelligence that should and can be accessed by everybody in their own way. And they talk a lot about the protocols that we see now are come from fear. When there was the times of colonization and colonialism and all of the things that were happening, and of course a lot of those very sacred wisdom and rituals it was necessary to take those and keep them safe for a time. So it was like the codes, like a code for a safe, were put into place at that point. So you had to learn the codes before you could unlock them, and only certain people held those codes. And now there's a lot of people that are opening and encouraging people to discover that for themselves. And really, that's, for me, that's where my passion lies, is to give people enough that you have an understanding that it opens something, but ultimately it comes from within you. You experience it for yourself, and then that becomes embodied through yeah, through your thoughts, your feelings, your emotions. So it all ties in together. I think this shamanic work, the shamans really are the quantum physicists of old.
Mm-hmm.
you know, like they are the Dr. Joe Dispenzas and the Bruce Liptons. They've been doing this forever.
Yeah.
They've been praying and asking the mountains to move, and the mountains move. I mean, some of the things I could tell you about what I've actually seen in the Andes, you wouldn't believe it. You wouldn't believe it. People would not believe it. People will say the same that have spent time in India and seen what the yogis can do.
Mm-hmm.
It's like bending the laws of nature. And why? Because they know they're not separate from it. So why couldn't you manifest a mountain in a physical form as a 10-foot giant winged being? Why couldn't you? Because that's what the mountain is, and you're it. And if you call on it, then it listens and it comes. And they don't have that sense of being separate to nature and being separate to energy. So that's where we're returning. That's where we're returning to, I think.
Yeah. That's beautiful. I think that we're so, especially, in our Western cultures and things like that, we're so disconnected with ourselves, right? And our powers and our abilities. And we don't really recognize that we have something inside of us, right? Or maybe we do recognize it, but we don't know what it is or what to do with it, and I think that, a lot of the work of people that are waking up now, especially in this time, is to help people remember, right? And recognize what that is inside of them. Like, I have always felt something, right, throughout my whole life. And it was when I finally kind of like woke up and, went through that little, I think, the journey that you were speaking to before. And it's like this, going from the victim to then taking responsibility and having awareness and then moving through those layers. I think when even that forgiveness piece of people who, in that victim state, you're like, have that mindset of like, oh my gosh, you're so bad. You did all these things to me, right? And then having to kind of quiet the ego a little bit and forgive them, and then see that it's all for you, like you said. And I think, in the beginning we hear that, right? It's happening for us, not to us. And I think sometimes in that victim state, we're like, no,
Yeah,
we want to
exactly.
point the finger because it's easier, and I like, there are some days where I'm like doing the work and I'm like, it was so much easier when I was just 20 years old drinking and, not even like thinking or having the awareness, right? But also at the same time wouldn't change it for anything, because I can, you can feel the power of it and the importance of that work. And, I'm not to the level that you are. And I think that it's so beautiful that this like ancient wisdom basically has like chosen you. I think that's, in whoever it chooses, right? To be able to wake up to that and have that and learn that. Such a beautiful thing.
Thank you. Yeah, and I just want to say, I think you definitely are as far along as I am. I think we're just expressing it in a different
Yeah.
way. I reckon, the path of the light worker, it's, whatever you, the luminous leader or whatever it is just that we've come in at a different trajectory point because we've done it. We've seen it. We've been everything. This is the thing that we've got to remember, I think, too, is that we can't have this spiritual ego as the worst ego that exists. Actually, I think I've done more work than you, or I'm sure we've all been with somebody, or maybe in a relationship where it's the finger pointing of you're not conscious enough. It's like, well, actually we've all been all things at some point in some lifetime, and that's how we've arrived to where we are now, that we're like, okay, so I've tasted everything, now I'm here to do what was always meant to be done, which is to remember while I'm in this body. And why? Well, really, ultimately, at the end of the day, what it comes back to is that we are in service to Pachamama. We're in service to the earth, not in a way of, and again, the ego's way of, I have to be in service, I'm here to change the world. It doesn't even have to be like that. It's when I think about it, I'm looking now, it's early morning here, and I'm seeing how the sunlight, the morning sunlight, is illuminating the plants in this divinity, in this color, in this, golden frequency of light. That's who we are. And the plants don't struggle, they don't try, they don't try and be something, they don't try and grow in a certain way, they just are. And through receiving the light as they're receiving right now, they're taking and synthesizing that light and they're giving it to the earth, right? Just by being, not by doing anything. And so that is really our true work. That is what we want to come to. The roles that we play, they're just extra. They're what we call in the Andes yapa. It's not the necessary part, it's the extra stuff. So, I think more and more as our need to be something drops away, then we return more and more to our true nature. Does that mean to say that, you know, when we return to our true nature, that we just sit there in a mountaintop and meditate? No, not at all. I think it's that's the mastery, right? It's moving through the world in full awareness of the truth of who you really are, of that isness, of that light. Like, I get a real kick out of, I travel a lot, and I get a kick out of going through airports because I just, you know, airports are funky places. They're all kinds of things. And, you know, with customs, with all of the things. And I just practice, or when I'm in a shopping centre even, I become the crystal. And I like can feel as I'm walking through that I'm emanating whatever frequency I'm choosing to work with that day. Sometimes it's neon blue, sometimes it's like a rainbow, sometimes it's a crystal like a diamond, and I play with emanating that light and watch how the energy around me shifts, you know, because people don't even know it, but they're receiving those frequencies, and how effortless things become because I'm in my center. You know, I was talking to you about this crazy last night when I was doing my apprenticeship call, and the crazy tourist here was started having a party the minute I pressed the on button. And I've had a string of, I'm shown a lot, as I'm sure a lot of people are, through my dreams. And I also spend a lot of time in the temples here in Bali. Like, my partner, he laughs because he's like, most people love going to nightclubs in the middle of the night, but you love going and sleeping in temples. And consistently this week, what I've been shown over and over again is about the not being distracted by the chaos, you know, that is happening around us, and cultivating, which takes practice. You know, it's not something that just happens overnight. And these situations, that's the thing, happening for us. Like last night, yeah, my human self was like, shut up, you know, like inside, that's what's happening on the outside. I'm there, you know, because when I'm teaching like that, I'm in a channeling state. So, but if I'm really in a channeling state, and if I'm really bringing through what needs to be received by the people that are receiving it, then nothing should be able to take me off that, right? Because I'm in my center, and that's just a metaphor for life. Like, it's developing that inner resilience, that inner peace, but also, you know, the lighthouse doesn't get swayed by the storms around it. You know, it's like, that's the practice, and that's what we need to cultivate more and more as we move through this huge transitional process that the planet's going through. We're going through it individually, we're going through it collectively, and yes, the old stuff has to break down. That's nature, that's science. Like, change can't occur, evolution can't occur if things stay the same. There's got to be chaos. That's why they call it the chaos theory, you know, like evolution comes through chaos. So yes, everything is breaking down. Yes, it throws us off our center. Yes, it's scary. Yes, we would prefer it to be another way. But what I encourage myself to do, and what I try and encourage those around me to do, if they're willing to receive it, can't force anything on anybody, is just to keep our heart on the prize. You know, we have to keep our focus on that we want to create more of. It's not to say that we bypass or ignore what's going on, but there is a split happening, right? And your reality and what we focus upon, you're going to gravitate towards communities and groups of people that are all holding that same vision of the future for our planet and for our people. And I don't think that the new earth that we speak about is a physical somewhere else, but I think there's going to be, and I already see it, there's going to be a very definite split around who lives in a particular way from the heart and who's still trapped in the ego and the fear of the mind, right? And more, those realities won't even be able to merge. It's kind of like, okay, we'll leave them over there to do their thing, and we'll leave them over there to do their thing, you know? And eventually I think there will be a tipping point when there's so many people that are switched on enough, just awake to the truth. I mean, wow, can you believe what we've lived through? It's epic that we've manifested here at this trajectory, at this turning point. Wow, what we've seen, that whole pandemic experience. Wow, like, my God, it was unbelievable what the earth was doing and what was happening, and how everything, wow, just went so still and silent, you know. Did we get it? Oh, I don't think we got it. I think we missed it. We had a big opportunity to get it, and I think a lot of us got it, but still the broader part of humanity didn't get it.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen? Does the earth need to do it again? Do the galactic guardians that are looking after this planet, because they're there, you know, I mean, we've been wiped out. People forget this. We've been wiped out
Yeah.
once.
A few times. Yeah.
So, you know, we've got an opportunity to wake up. The earth doesn't need saving. Wake up and remember who the hell we really are, so that she can get on with it, you know, like that's what she wants. We're her children. She doesn't want us to suffer. She wants us to be, you know, but at the same time, like any good mother, she will, you know, give us a, if we're going to continue to go rogue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I feel like every time that has happened, we've come back more evolved, you know. But there was a moment during the whole pandemic, I really thought for a moment, you know, that collectively most of us like got it. And then it was like, and I think there was maybe a moment, but then we just began to forget about it, you know, more and more. And I think it's, I don't know, just that pause, that stillness, that like literally overnight you could see how she was repairing herself. It was incredible. And I don't know, it was really interesting time.
It was.
I think
I was here in Bali, so I got
Yeah.
to see it, because this is a tourist
Mm-hmm.
island, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we had pre-pandemic. There was at any given time there's 1 million tourists on the island. There's only 3 million Balinese, so that's a quarter of the population on a tiny island is tourists. Now it's more, right, after the pandemic.
Yeah.
When everything shut down and I stayed, there was 6,000 on the island. That is a massive difference, 6,000 to 1 million. So all of a sudden, Mama Bali returned to her original state. There was no cloud, like the pollution had completely gone. There was so quiet. Everything was just flourishing and thriving. The people that were affected by it were the people that had given everything over to tourism, thinking that was their, you know, so their rice fields, their land, you know, concreted for villas but the people that were living in areas where they had land, they all started returning to growing their own food and then setting up markets to either sell or exchange food with other people. You know, it was very, very beautiful. And then it was such a metaphor for what was going on the planet, because when the gates opened, wow. And it has just been challenging to watch it, actually. You know, like I'm here in Uluwatu, and Uluwatu was one of the most natural and beautiful areas on the island, and now it's just like becoming a sea of wall-to-wall white concrete villas. And there's a feeling of helplessness because you can't do much about it, but it's on the bigger level, it's like, wow, we missed the mark here. You know, we were given the opportunity. But I do believe, you know, I do believe that there's enough of us that really did get it to incrementally or on some level be making that change. And that's what I would invite people. This is the question I ask myself regularly, if not daily, is what did I learn in that period? What was my major takeaway from that period? And keep going back to it, because, you know, everything was taken, right, from all of us. Like we all of a sudden went from, for me, my work back then was largely traveling around the world offering the work that I offer, and all of a sudden 2 years of planning and programming gone, right? Now for me, because of the perspective that I've worked over the years to anchor and develop, I can honestly say, hand on heart, I didn't have a single moment of panic, not one, not one. What I had was relief. I felt so relieved that the push and the busy and the have-tos had been taken out of my control. And I didn't have to make space or time for my nervous system, for my adrenals to rest, that it was done for me. Why? How do you have that perspective when so many people were suffering? Because I really got it. I'm sure you did too. I really understood that this was happening for us, not only for us, but through us. And that there was, when you get that and you move away from the fear, because the fear creates gripping, right? Resistance, struggle. Oh my God, what am I going to do? I have to find a way. And that, what that actually does with the universe, with, even if we're going to say the law of attraction, is it pushes opportunity and ideas away from you rather than opening you to something better and something new. So from that period, for me, what was born is something I was so closed to before that, which is teaching online, facilitating ceremony online. I'm like, huh? Before that, I was like, how? That's not possible. And now I see the Zoom portal, like we're in here, as a stargate. It's a way of working on the level of energy and being able to access gazillions of people more in, that really need it around the world. And what happened is I ended up with more space and able to create more, and it totally shifted the trajectory of how I do things. But had I have gone into fear and struggle around that and fighting the process, I don't think it would have been that joyful. I know it wouldn't have,
Yeah.
and that goes with every single thing in our lives, every single thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I, like you also, I never had like a panic moment. We were here, but I never really experienced that. But I don't watch the news either, which I think sometimes adds to it. But, I know that for a lot of people, it was, very fear-based. And I think, like you're saying, knowing that it's for you. And I think, what you focus on and what you're bringing out is what you're going to manifest more of, right? And what you're going to call more of into your life. And so moments where I would have that moment of, if I was at my parents maybe and they were watching the news and watching the numbers and things like that, I just leave the room.
Yeah.
Just be like, I
And
have to
also,
focus on me.
yeah, that's exactly it. And I think also it's important to say within that too is having the absolute compassion for what people were actually experiencing and going through, situations where loved ones were involved, and all of the things. It's very, very hard. It's one thing when
Yeah.
you're just dealing with your own stuff that's coming up around things, but when, you've got a situation with a loved one that you can't get to and they're ill or something like that, that really turns the dial up. That really turns the volume up on our, but this again, however tough the situation, it all comes back to the same thing. We need an anchor point and practices, and not rigid, like not, I don't, I used to be have to wake, set the alarm, wake up and meditate every day. And I don't do that so much. Not to say I don't meditate, I do. But what I'm more interested in is teaching my body to feel differently, teaching my body somatically to feel what it feels like to be in ease, to feel what it feels like to be in freedom. And if that means lying in my bed in the morning and rolling around like a cat for 5 minutes and breathing somatically, I do a lot of somatic breath work, which basically means taking the breath and the awareness and a little bit of like movement into those areas, because that where that contraction and that constriction is in those areas, like you take a breath in and it sort of hits a little sticking point, that's where the trauma is, that's where the unprocessed stuff is. So I'm all about it's challenging because us humans, we love to own things, we love to feel a heavy feeling, attach a story and make it ours and hold on to it for dear life. I mean, that's just kind of what we do. But you get to a point, and this is what I do my best to help people reach through all of the work that I do, whether it's medicine or not, to understand how powerful, I've just got a big rush of energy as I said that, how powerful it is when you start to learn to go beyond the story and heal yourself from the level of energy and feeling through reprogramming, retraining your nervous system to feel differently. You can't receive abundance if your nervous system is in lack. You can't receive love if your nervous system is in I'm unlovable. Like we have a belief system, but it's also in your nervous system. So you have to retrain yourself to feel that you are already receiving that you're already in that state. And then, you know, life is like, oh yeah, okay, she's vibrating in that frequency. Well, then it just comes natural. It's natural. You've only got to look at you don't need a, you know, you don't even need to go very far to look and see how your subconscious is playing out. You don't even need to go back and dig in your childhood, although, you know, a lot of it begins in those first 7 years. You've only got to look at what's going on in your life right now.
Yeah. What's triggering you?
Yep. And also what you're creating, you know, if you're consistently sort of consciously rewiring those programs, then what is reflecting back to you in life will be more ease, more joy, more abundance. The life will still throw curveballs at you, but it's how quickly are you stuck in it? How easily do you move through it and get over it and start and see the gold, see the lesson? Life isn't going to stop giving us lemons, as they say.
Yeah.
But we can become better at making that lemonade, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. A lot of my work has been with nervous system. I think everybody has some form of trauma. And I think that nervous system response in the moment, I mean, it brings us back to that. And I think sometimes it's confusing as to whether something's just a no or a trauma response, or I guess like when the emotions get involved, right? If we're not practiced or we don't have tools like breathing or some sort of somatic work or whatever it is, fitness, something, right, that we can go to, those emotions can completely take over like everything. And
Yeah.
so I know that that is a huge practice, and it's something I still work with, right? There are moments where I feel like I have pretty good awareness. Of course, nobody's perfect. I'm always going to be on that journey, but there are moments where I find myself just like automatically going into a response, right? And then I'm like, oh my gosh, it's like after the fact, like that's, you know, it was just like that subconscious, right? And I think like in reflecting and reviewing, and then you can next time like go back to it. But that, I think that is a big struggle for a lot of people, you know, and especially during COVID, everybody's, you know, a lot of people's nervous systems were very dysregulated and with no tools to know how to regulate it.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I think the gold and the important part of that is exactly as you said, Rochelle, about the catching, you know? So you might have the trauma response or have the reaction in the moment, but the fact that you catch it and the fact that you're like, oh, and I I don't always get it right, but I do my best. Try not to use that word either. I do my best to be a bit light with myself, you know, like, oh, there I go, Jemsy, you know, like my inner child is Jemsy. So I'm like, Jemsy, okay, sweetie, what do you need? Like this, for me, the nervous system stuff, I reckon one of the most powerful, you know, life-changing practices that I have done and that regulates my nervous system and actually changes and rewires my central nervous system is simply in the morning, the first thing that I do when I wake up, and it takes only a few minutes, and it doesn't matter if anybody is lying next to you, nobody even knows, and that's just to take a hand and put it onto your heart. And in fact, shall we do it? Shall we do
Yeah,
it together right
let's
now?
do it.
Yeah. All right, let's do it. Okay, so just to bring us into the moment, taking a nice deep breath into your heart and imagine your heart like a radiant golden sun. Breathing in light. And as you breathe out, share that light, let it emanate out, just like the radiant rays of the sun. Feeling the earth holding you, supporting you, nourishing you, feeling yourself being guided by the source, by the celestial beings of the heavens. And just taking your right hand and placing it onto your heart. Take your left hand and place it onto your belly, your womb, your hara. Taking a nice deep breath into your hands, feeling your belly rise, feeling your heart expand and open. Breathe in that light. And as you breathe out, feel that light melting and merging into your energetic field through your body. And I just want you to imagine that you're looking into a beautiful big mirror. The mirror can look however you want it to look. And we're going to call into the mirror your inner child, your little one. Just noticing what age you are and noticing how you're feeling. And then just asking your little one, however you want to speak to him or her. For me, it's little Jemsy. Hey, sweetheart, how you doing today? And just listen. And whatever it is, whatever they say to you, don't try and change it or justify it. If there's fear or anxiety, like tap the heart, tap your belly or hold it, press and say, it's okay, sweetheart, I'm here. I've got you. There's a lot going on. It's okay to be nervous. It's okay to be anxious, but I'm here. I've got you. And maybe they're telling you that they feel joyful or playful. Maybe they're telling you they feel sad. Whatever it is, you just give full presence. You allow the feeling to be there and you stay with it. And you tell your inner child how much you love them, how much they're supported, how much they're safe, and how proud of them you are. And just say to them, so today we're going to have an adventure. Are you ready? Okay. Give your inner child a huge big hug and see and feel them relax and melt. See and feel them receiving that beautiful light that you were just receiving yourself. Feel them safe and loved. Totally lovable. Tell them how gorgeous they are, how perfect they are, how beautiful they are, how much you cherish them, and how they're free to be exactly what they need to be. And you will not judge, you'll accept unconditionally. Take a deep breath in and out. And when you feel ready, you can open your eyes.
It's beautiful. Yeah.
Because we heal through acceptance, right? Those parts of ourselves that come up that we call the shadow, that are constantly knocking on our door and creating havoc in our lives, is only that little one that's like, hey, 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 you're not listening. There's something that I need to feel this. And the feel to heal, you know, the pathway from anxiety and fear to being in the openness and the peace of love is the pathway of acceptance. Trying to change it, but saying, it's okay, sweetie, it's okay. And then on the days where they're joyful, yeah, look at you go, you know, like we need to, I believe, just re-parent ourselves, because it's in those first 7 years of life especially that all of the programs that keep us stuck, that's where they came in, that's where they locked in. So
Yeah. Yeah. And it's such a easy practice to start your day, right? To just check in and have that moment before you open your eyes or get out of bed. And it's so, I think there are so many practices that, like you said, like nobody even has to know that you're doing things like that. And the ability to acknowledge yourself and where you're at and be like, it's, you know, it's okay, I got you kind of thing. You know, because like you said in the beginning, that what we're saying to ourselves, our words have so much impact on, because, you know, we're 80% water, you know, and how that vibration, just like when I lay in bed at night and I notice how my thoughts go, I just find a mantra and I just repeat it so that I'm falling asleep to something positive, you know, even if I'm in whatever emotional state, you know, it's better than stressing or worrying or anything like that, you know, and just that difference of being able to wake up in the morning and not have that immediately like, ugh, here we go, you know, is
you
like,
absolutely nailed it. Like those two, that they are the most important times of the day. That's when the most powerful programming, you know, that we have some control over happens, right? It's in between falling asleep and sleeping and waking up and being awake. And why? Because in those states where our brain waves are in a state called theta. So we're in the theta state from the third trimester of being in the womb until we're 7 years old. And theta is what? It's hypnosis, right? We're in the frequency of hypnosis. So when you're in theta state, anything that becomes repeated, anything that's repetitive, 2 times 2 is 4, 4 times 4 is 16, 5 plus 2 is 7, you know, that's how they program us in school. Or the family, you know, or the people around you are, oh, good girl, good girl, good girl, bad girl, bad girl, you know. So we start to form through repetition these programs, you know, and that happens in that theta state. So to change those programs and to rewire and create new programs that serve us, because we're now the masters of our reality and we can create whatever we want. Now we know the ultimate time to do it is in those 2 times. So, you know, there are so many different practices, but as you said, as simple as a mantra, or there's some really great, I've seen some really great out there on YouTube, like subliminal, where it sound, you know, it's like rain, shh, but what's being repeated, and I always check it, I always turn it right up to make sure that I'm in alignment with what it's actually saying. But there are some out there that are really good, and so if you go to sleep with that, then that is what's being programmed into your subconscious mind. Remember that the subconscious mind is running the show 95% of the time. Whenever you're not totally consciously doing something, you're thinking. When you're thinking, the subconscious mind is in charge. That's how we can drive from point A to point B, and you know, you're like, how did I get here? And you can't even remember driving the car, because through repetition you programmed how to drive the car into your subconscious mind, right?
Yeah.
So the same thing in the morning, when you do this in the morning and you train your nervous system to know that it's safe, you train your inner child to know that they're seen, they're loved, they're heard, then they don't have the need to scream and cause chaos in your life, because they know that they're accepted. And the other thing that in that theta state for me, the next part of that powerful practice is to, like I said, teach my body to feel what it feels like to already have or be in life in the way that I want it to be, right? So, you know, I'm building a house here in Bali. I'm building a little sanctuary, actually. I've got, eventually it will be two little 1-bedroom villas and then a 3-bedroom and a yoga shala. So I'll be able to have. Now, when I started, when I actually got the land, I had no money at all to be doing that. Like, I had gone through a massive process in my life. In 2017, I gave my business away, walked away with 0. And now here I am, you wouldn't believe it, I don't even know how it's happened. I'm paying for all of this stuff in cash. I don't even know how I'm doing it. It's crazy. And why? Because it has a higher purpose. Like, I sit there and I see the people coming. I feel what they're going to feel like when they're there. I feel how I'm going to be. I'm regenerating the land. I'm building in a way that hopefully will be an example to people on how they can build in harmony with nature and still have a beautiful, luxurious space, but be in total harmony with nature. And yeah, I do my best as much as I can to be in the feeling of that, and feel myself being there and experiencing it. And what happens when we do that is you have to then let go of how it's going to come to you, because it will manifest in different ways. It could be through ideas and inspirations for projects, you know, to bring something through. It can be that somebody comes and gives it to you. It can be from a gazillion different ways. But, you know, from someone that spent 17 years in businesses that I was doing my very best to be in sacred enterprise and conscious, and my abundance program was so messed up, because that was my program from when I grew up. You know, I was programmed to that you know, nothing comes easy, that you can do it, but you just have to scrape through, that you've always got to rob Peter to pay Paul. You know, that was my program. And when I gave everything away and I was like, enough, I am not doing that anymore. I'm going back to, and what I'm gonna do is give myself fully to my path, to what lights me up, to my passion. And not to say you don't take action, but when you do that and make that decision, then you have to watch and become aware that when the things come and when they pop up, the ideas, the inspirations, the opportunities, then you act. You know, it's not just like lying back and go, okay, now universe, throw me a pot of gold. But it opens up ways for us. So it's But you can't do that if you're still operating from the subconscious, and you can't do that if your nervous system is still in a some sort of trauma response about whatever
Mm.
it might be that you're calling into your life.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think that's that surrender too that is so hard for so many of us to like conceptualize maybe because it's like, yeah, I think there is this idea that we have to sit back and let it happen, but there is also the action piece to it as well. When it comes to you have to recognize it and
Yeah.
all the thing. I mean, I think there are tests involved in there too, and staying in integrity and and staying authentic and all the things like that. And yeah, I think just like that's been a huge lesson for me this summer is just like releasing it and just flowing and just being entrusting the process, because I know for me, I've always felt like I had very little control, right? In that victim mindset where it's just like everything was happening to me. And then it just like shifts, and it's like, well, now I can't control it. I can control what I can control and I can't control what I can't control. And there's no point really like stressing about it, but yeah, I think that's a beautiful space to be in. And just like the things, I hear stories like yours and people who it comes and being able to shift that mindset. Cause I think that's a huge one for all of us. We have to hustle, we have to work, we have to, do 12 hours a day and this, that, and the other thing, just to be able to pay the bills. And I do believe it doesn't have to be like that, but it is a strong mindset that a lot of us do have that we have to reprogram.
And I think the key is, and I, this, I want to say to everyone too, that this is a journey, it doesn't happen from doing it once. It's something that we were trained into a certain way, so we have to train ourselves out of it. It's like if you go to the gym and you've never been to the gym before, or yoga, right? And you're looking at everyone else doing all of this and they're flexible and all the things, and you're like, or at the gym you've got to train that muscle, to be able to do whatever that activity is that you want to do. And we have to train our mind to do the same, because the mind is the field that affects every single thing, including our health, including our longevity, including our well-being. So we're not always going to get it right, and that's okay, but having the awareness of what's actually going on within your own being, within your own body, I think that's where the empowerment is. And it's not to say too, because people that are, perhaps, and it's okay because we've all been there, are still operating from the victim side of the coin, which is like, oh yeah, well that's easy for you to say. You live in Bali and you've got, but I didn't just wake up one day in Bali. I didn't just wake up one day with this lifestyle. Like I had to go through all that stuff, like massive, 2 bankruptcies, huge. One was all over the newspapers, like huge ego annihilations to refine and constantly practice. And sometimes the more aware and awake you get, the bigger the stuff gets, because it's like the universe has this wonderful way sometimes of being like, oh yeah, you think you got it? How about we just throw you a little something to test,
Yeah.
But it's maintaining that attitude of like, okay, this is a big one, but I can, this is happening for me. This is happening to help me move through and refine. And even if you're working a 9-to-5 job that you hate, and you're like, how can I possibly be thinking of abundance or the lifestyle that I want when I have to go and do this thing that I hate because I've got family to support or whatever. But what you do have control over is how you feel. What you do have control over is what goes on in your mind, in your vision. So yes, you can have that job, but perhaps you can see that as being a means to an end, that it's a stepping stone into something else, and be grateful. Like this is the key. That's the clincher. That's the number one above all else. Grateful that you've got a job to go to. Just that.
Yeah.
Oh my God, how lucky am I? How lucky am I that I have a job to go to? And for me, the gratitude practice becomes, it's almost a conversation that I have with myself all the time now. I walk through life, I get on in my car, oh my God, I love this car. How lucky am I to have this car? Oh, I love that look, I can see the grass and I'm surrounded by jungle. I love that I can see the jungle. They're little things. They're just little things. And everybody has something in their life to be grateful for, because if you're born onto this planet and you can see the sky, just that,
Yeah.
the beauty of the sky, the beauty of the sunshine, the beauty of nature. And that is really the simple but profound way, I think that we can retrain our subconscious and our nervous system into a frequency of what Abraham Hicks calls allowing, or just, kind of expecting that that's normal without
Mm-hmm.
expectation. It's
Mm-hmm.
normal. Like I have a little saying that I say, and it's stoked. I'm stoked, but not surprised. So when something awesome happens, it's like, yeah, that's amazing. And then it's like, but it's normal.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
normalize the miracle. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's those little mindset shifts and training. Like you said, it's that it is through that repetition and emotion, right? That we're retraining ourselves to be able to think and have gratitude for those things, over because I think that sometimes too, there's situations where I don't want to go into and I will just sit there and I'm like, you know what? I'm so grateful that I get to have this experience, and it is the energy you bring to it. Not going to get it right 100% of the time, but I think just like in those small increments, and then just gets better and better because, what the universe gives you, it's going to give it to you again in another form, if we're not getting it this time. And so really like doing that work, I think is so powerful. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I couldn't agree more. And when you think about it, how fun it is that,
Mm-hmm.
even if your reality, it feels overwhelming, even if you feel like I have days where I'm like, oh my God, I'm so overwhelmed, but I'm overwhelmed because I'm keeping up with the things I've created. Like I decided, and that's really cool. So when I remember that, I'm like, oh, so if I'm overwhelmed and I'm keeping up with the things that I've created and it's too much for me or it's not the way that I want it to be, then I just need to change what I'm creating,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then
Mm-hmm.
then what I'm experiencing is going to be different. And it can be incremental, So again, how does that look if you're in feeling like you're trapped by life circumstances? Is that you have to decide to carve out 5 or 10 minutes in your day to create the change, because if you're going to just continue to repeat the same things in the same order in the same pattern, you're always going to get what you've always got. You
Mm-hmm.
got to do something to start the momentum in another direction. That goes with anything. Again, going back to the gym, you want to build muscle volume. You don't go once and lift the weight and then it happens. You've got to be consistent. So, spending 5 or 10 minutes a day, I'm sure you have resources. I do on my YouTube channel. There's free meditations there. There's many, you can go to Joe Dispenza, you can go to Bruce Lipton. There's so many people out there that have free processes that you can actually sit with for 5, 10, 20 minutes if you've got it in the morning. It doesn't have to be big, and just start to retrain your mind into this new feeling state. And then you start to see the miracles occur around you. And the key to that is to say thank you. When the miracles occur, when the little synchronicities happen or you got to acknowledge it and say thank you, because then the universe is like, she's got it. Okay, we'll give more.
Mm-hmm.
And they start to become more and more, right? Until eventually your life is really guided by synchronicity. Synchronicity,
Mm-hmm.
and for me, it's everything. Even if I have something that I'm meant to be doing and I keep hitting roadblocks with it, no matter how much I'm trying to, then I just cancel it. Because I read the energy now. That's telling me it's nothing to do with anything. All as it's to do with is that it's not for my highest good, it's not for the highest good of the people, and something isn't in alignment. So it tells me that I need to take a step back. I need to ask to be shown very clearly what needs to happen, and then through the ideas and inspiration, there'll be a different way of doing something, a different time, a different date, a different something, and I trust that. I don't be like, oh my God, my retreat only got 2 people when normally it gets 20. It's like, well, the retreat only got 2 people because the retreat's not meant to happen. It's not
Mm-hmm.
good for you. It's not good for them. You have to. So then I make a shift and a change in the format, in the program, in the whatever, and then within 3 days it's full. So that's
Yeah.
the fun. That's the
Mm-hmm.
fun of creation. The game of creation is starting to like plasticine, like mold things a little
Yeah.
bit. But it's a co-creation. It's a conversation that you become
Mm-hmm.
aware of. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. How do you use like plants in supporting that? I've recently begun exploring, I guess, just, and not even like psychedelics or anything like that, just in general, you know, plant medicine of like, because I think they hold wisdom, they hold power, they hold frequency, you know, and I think it's something I'm just fascinated in as I'm just exploring myself, of just buying a new plant and putting it in hot water and tasting it and, you know, little things like that. But so I'd be curious how you use that to support, because I know you mentioned cacao and different plant medicines, but what does that look like in your sort of like day to day?
Yeah. So as I was saying before, I'd love to invite people to think of plant medicines, and we're not just talking about the psychoactive, ancient, like ancestral medicines, like wachuma, ayahuasca, you know, the ones that we know of, or cacao, but as exactly as you said, plant medicines are also the herbs, the medicinal flowers, the plants, and all of the things that we work with in tinctures and teas that are eons old. I mean, right across the planet, it doesn't matter what tradition or what lineage, the healers have all worked with the plants.
Mm-hmm.
And all of our pharmaceuticals that we have these days are all derivatives or compounds of plants. So exactly as you said, they hold, you know, the codes for healing and all of the things. But as I was saying before, the way I've come to really understand it is, rather than a plant having a spirit or a doctor or a healer within it, there are angelic beings and energies. Angelic beings, we'll say, guardians, protectors, guides, healers, doctors, that have chosen to incarnate physically into the plant so that you can receive that gift of whatever it is that they have for you. So it's super beautiful for me when I look at it like this, because it's, the plant is like the carrier, in the same way that the water is the carrier of the vibration. The plant is the carrier of these particular frequencies, without getting too woo-woo, that are going to support you in whatever it needs. And you start to realize too, as you're working with plant medicines, that there's a difference between curing and true healing. Like, curing happens on kind of a bit of a more of a surface level. You can cure something with something, but if you don't attend to what created that in the first place, and that actually goes beyond the body, and that lives in, before it's even in the emotions, before it's even in the subconscious, it's in the field, right? It's in our electromagnetic field. I mean, that gives you a clue as to how we work on the level of energy, and why what happens in your field is important. Electromagnetic, meaning that it draws towards it something of a similar nature, right? Something of a similar frequency. So in our field of energy, and if it's hard for you if it's hard for someone to comprehend or accept that we have a field of energy, well, I got a Bluetooth speaker over there and I can play music here, and I'm hearing it with no cord. We are living in an age where there are towers around and we have this high-speed internet coming in. So how can it possibly be woo-woo that if everything has a field of energy that we don't? Like, we do. And that field of energy is linked in to every other being and every other thing, not only on this planet, but also on this universe. But in our own personal field, we have kind of layers of where we kind of store things, to keep it simple. So you could imagine that your field is sort of like plasma. It's not, even though it feels like air, it's actually quite viscous. It's like if you put a handprint in there, the handprint would stay there for a while before it would come back out. And so as we move through our life, and as we move through lifetimes, whenever we've experienced a trauma of any kind that we haven't had the tools to process in the moment by regulating our nervous system and all the things we were talking about before, like, I know that you know this, Rochelle, but you think of the zebra that runs from the tiger, and there's the chase is on, and the zebra is like, bah, 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 and the tiger, and it's fearing for its life. And the zebra gets away and it stops by the waterhole, and the first thing that it does,
Shakes.
shakes, right? That's a nervous system response to release the trauma in that moment. The zebra then doesn't stand around the waterhole for the next 10 years telling all of its friends how it got chased by the tiger and how traumatizing it was, right? And re-imprinting that trauma over and over again. But we're not taught how to move that energy. We're not taught how to feel, to heal. We're taught how to have emotions, but to feel the sensation of where those emotions sit, that's how we pop the trauma, right? Because it's in the field and it needs to be processed. Processed means you need to presence it and be with it, not hold on to it, but simply witness it, watch it, allow it, feel it. So we work with the medicines on that level because we're changing those vibrational imprints in the field, which then in turn feed into the energy centers in our body. So in the Vedic system, they work, there's many chakras, but they work with, as we know, 7 main ones. In the Andean traditions, they work with 4, they're called pokpos, but they're same thing. It's like funnels that are drawing this information in from this field, and each one of these funnels connects into the physical body, into the organs, and this information tells the physical body how it should manifest. And that's why we get aches and we get pains and we get illnesses, we get sickness, disease. So we can go in and take out the whatever or treat the whatever that's going on in the physical. But if we don't do the work, you know, and this is where the work with the plants really comes in for me, or, you know, with somebody who can help you, like yourself, can help people to reprogram their nervous system and their traumas and all of the things, then you're only really band-aiding the problem. You're taking it out, but if that imprint is still hanging out there in the field, then it's still going to be informing the body. Now, how does that work in terms of the mind? Well, the mind is the most powerful field that there is, right? It's like a transmitter. So you've got to change your mind to change your body, change your mind to change your reality. So that's why we're working. And the plants help us to access that very, very directly. You know, sometimes when people sit with the stronger plant medicines, in terms of the healing process and why they can be so powerful if they're facilitated correctly, because there is a lot of stuff going on out there at the moment that is not safe and not okay. But if you're working in an impeccable container where the we'll call it the facilitator, knows what they're doing and how they're working, then you can have spontaneous and huge healings, or at least a massive gateway opens for that healing to occur. You know, because you open the trapdoor of the subconscious mind, you allow what's hidden there perhaps to be seen or felt in the body, but the medicine, through its highest frequency, also has the ability to reprogram your field, and not only the field around the body, but each one of our DNA has a field around it individually too. They actually call it the morphogenetic field. And it's been shown that that field of energy around a DNA carries, guess what? Memory, ancestral memory. The DNA, this is why, you know, for example, you might have a fear of the color red and have no idea why, but if you dug, you might find that your great-grandfather was hit by a red something and was killed, right? So that memory of, I see red, I'm in terror, and you don't know where it's come from, but it's because it's in the morphogenetic field of the DNA. So just to finish up on that, because I know it's a lot, this is in terms of the ancestral healing, this is why I think now is so important and so beautiful for that too, because people are now deciding to be the chain breakers. They're having the realization and the awareness that they've been carrying those ancestral programs that don't belong to them, and that they're ready to heal it and change it so that they don't carry it forward. And the beauty of healing it and changing it now is that it also reprograms that energy from the past as well. So you heal in all directions. You know, whenever we heal ourselves, we truly do heal the world. Why? Because there is no separation. It's like being in the center of a spider's web, and we're in the center, and you've seen what happens in a spider's web. Like if the spider makes a move in the center of the web, the outside of the web vibrates.
Mm-hmm.
So this is how our healing and doing our own personal work is not selfish. It's the opposite. It's actually being in service.
Yeah. Yeah. As you were talking, I just had this visual of just like this tiny little drop, right? But then the ripple effect that just goes throughout is profound.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's the power of ceremony. That's the power. What is ceremony? It's life is the ultimate ceremony.
Mm.
That is the ceremony. We are in ceremony in every single moment because we are always existing in sacred time and sacred space. But when we come together in a container that is a ceremony, we are affecting healing on such a powerful level because you then have, like right now, we have two people together that are both focused on a common intent. And so the ripples that are coming out just from you and I sitting here together today, we'll never know how exponential it is, the high frequency energy that's coming out from us in this conversation today, and how many people it's helping and healing. And when you come together with even more with a focused combined intent, I love doing these online. I often do them for free because I get like 1,000 people, right? So we've got 1,000 people sitting there together on Zoom, and you know how cool that is to swipe across the screen and see that, from every corner of the planet, and we're there with one focused intent to heal, to receive, and to give. So that the people that for one reason or another can't be there, don't want to be there, are also receiving it. So powerful. And there's gazillions of people around the world doing this.
Yeah.
So I have great hope for our planet. I think we're going to be good.
Yeah, I think so too. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. I could keep talking. It's so fascinating. It's just, I mean, yeah, like you said, I mean, just all of this work is just so important right now, and having these conversations. And, that's what I feel with the podcast. The energy I feel in these conversations, I know is going far beyond us. It's living in this little space in the internet, right? That's just impacting anybody who wants to come visit. So I love it. And I appreciate it so much, coming and sharing everything with me and with the audience as well.
Oh, thank you so much,
You're
Rochelle.
welcome.
I feel like I could sit here talking all day with you.
Yeah.
It's so fun.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome. And if you want to let everyone know if you have anything going on now, if there's any, how they can work with you, how they can find you, I'll leave everything in the show notes as well.
Thank you. You can find me at Anchoring the Light on Instagram, or Anchoring the Light, www.anchoringthelight.com. I take pilgrimages to Peru. I've been doing that since 2013, so we have a few going next year. I run online trainings as well that you can see, working with everything that we've been talking about and how to facilitate it for others. And I also run short immersions and reset and rise retreats, which are working with different modalities and with the medicine to help us really remember who we are, step into our high selves, reclaim our mastery, and create the life that we really want. And I've actually got a course that's usually, I think it's usually $333 US for a month-long immersion, but I'd love to give that to your listeners as a tool, because it's called Be the Crystal, and it's a resilience training for empaths. We're all empathic souls. That's why we've incarnated here this time around. So it's using some shamanic principles and practices, and we have, during that, there's four ceremonies that we do together as well. It's really beautiful, and everyone that's done it tells me how much they get from it and how much it's changed their lives. So I'm like, okay, well, that's a good one to give to people to hopefully help. So all you have to do is just send a DM to my Instagram account with the word resilience, and you will automatically get the link to receive that one.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.